So welcome everybody. This is What's Up for You, and it is June 10th, 2025. So before we get started with the questions that we have today, let's just kind of check in. Again, before we started this recording, I was asking everybody to just breathe into themselves, close their eyes, and pay attention to what's going on internally. And I can't tell you how important just little steps like this are, especially throughout our days, especially if you're working with and or supporting children diagnosed on the spectrum. It's like those moments of checking in with ourselves, calming our own nervous system, starting to regulate that nervous system by shutting out the noise of the outside world. It's not only good for each and every one of us, but it's really good for the kids. And it's really good for the kids because as our nervous systems are more regulated, then they have a model for how to regulate theirs. And even to say to them, it's like, I'm closing my eyes for a minute. I'm going to block everything out for just a second and just feel what's going on, in the body. It also gives them a good trajectory into the body. So these are it's a very simple in the moment kind of tool, but it really does work in supporting both your integration and theirs. Don't think you're too busy for a quick closing your eyes and just checking in with yourself. It really does a lot. So, Miss Sharon, where are we going today?
Noble, age 9, we have been learning spell to communicate with the stencil boards and a tutor. Noble is very uncooperative, doesn't seem to like spelling, and the mother is wondering if there is another way he'd prefer to communicate.
All right, let's see what he wants to share here. Well, it's not so much that he doesn't want to communicate in that way. It feels like there's something about the dynamics of the spell to communicate, the steps, it feels chaotic to me. Like it feels like it's chaotic, like maybe too much is being thrown at him all at the same time. It's like his body can't keep up or can't catch up with the regulation that is being requested of him. And so it's not so much that he doesn't want to communicate in that way. He just says maybe not throwing so much at him all at the same time, or maybe not making sure that the people who are supporting that spell to communicate are really regulated within themselves as they're inviting him to regulate. It's not that it's like he's uncooperative, not really for no other reason other than he just says too much too fast, right? Too much too fast. So I hope that's helpful.
All right, next question. Is Anthony, he's age 14, what does Anthony need me to do for him to be able to spell with me?
So Anthony has a little different conversation around spelling. What Anthony is saying is there's a particular fixation around spelling, and I can completely understand why any parent wants to communicate with their child. And every parent wants to hear all the amazing things that their children have to say. What Anthony's sharing is there's a little bit of a fixation around either getting to the next level or hearing his voice or whatever, and that energy coming in along with the invitation to spell. It's kind of like that other energy is, let's say, co-opting that energy to spell. And so if we're asking, like, what can I do to help regulate around that? Like, what can you as a communication partner do to regulate around that? The very first thing he's saying is and he goes, I know that this is challenging, but it's almost like less desire for that communication to happen and more, let's see what happens. Less push, more, I'm curious what you can do next. just moving into that kind of energy. And he just kind of goes, now I'm sailing. Like he's like, okay, I'm ready. Now I'm sailing. So it's really just a matter of, and I'm not saying that that's not challenging because I know as a parent, of course, you want to communicate with your kid, and that makes perfect sense. He's just saying less push, less focus on how it's going to look, when it's going to happen, all that, and more curiosity. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Chase, 10 years old. What is Chase's purpose on this earth? Also, with me as his mother helping him. And will he ever choose to communicate with words?
Well, um, Chase's purpose, I'm going to put that in air quotes here, is the same as everybody else's, which is to be fully himself, right? To show up and learn and grow and experience and express and offer who he is to the world and learn from the world that he's offering it himself to. So, but that's a generalized statement because that I could say is true for all of us as far as his Chase. Okay, so I think Chase is the one that was bouncing up and down. So he's got a few other things to say. So give me just a minute here. So as far as whether or not he wants to communicate, in all truth, he's like, well, not now, not really. It's like, and again, not seeing that as a negative, but literally seeing it as an invitation. He keeps talking about almost like the more silent he is, the deeper those that are around him are digging into themselves, or at least the invitation is there to dig in. And so he's kind of like, and this is not like something that he's doing on purpose or manipulating anybody in any way to dive in deeper to themselves, but it is the byproduct of him not really being too interested in that verbal communication or even spelling or those kinds of things. It's kind of like, no, I think I'll stay where I am and just invite people to come find me, invite people to come meet me. He is very interested in finding other ways to connect and communicate. So if you aren't already telepathic with him, that's probably, well, not probably, he's most definitely, he's correcting me, that's the direction he's kind of inviting you into. And some of that invitation to, I'm going to say, like other forms of communication, whether it be telepathic or through the dreamscape or any of those things, he's just saying that the moment that it's kind of like, okay, I'm not going to push what I think should happen next, but I'm going to connect with what wants to happen next. Because it's not that communication can't happen or it won't happen. It's where will communication happen? How will it happen? And he feels to me like he's kind of going, I'm inviting you to my world instead of coming closer to yours, at least for right now. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. This is another Anthony. He is 12. Anthony struggles with food aversions, and I believe it plays a very significant role in his autism and ADHD. He has a high carb, high sugar diet, and he eats nothing. He recently wanted to go to a week-long camp, but was not able to attend because of his food issues. He has tried to eat one new food and was saying he was afraid to eat it. First time he said that. I adopted him at one from a foster care, and I think maybe that might have something to do with it. Yet I do know that it is also a part of some autistic kids' challenges. What can I do to help? Food therapy for years has not helped. Thank you.
So, what Anthony says immediately is, even in that first year of life, the only thing that he might have been able to fully control about his environment is whether he ate or not and what he ate or not. And so, really early on, there's this pattern of it's almost his, in some ways, I could say it's almost his way of demonstrating his sovereignty or his autonomy. It's like, and it's a deeply, you might say it's an embedded program or an embedded conditioning that he used as part of, I'm going to say, as part of a survival strategy. So let's see what we can clear out about that. And then I want to address your question about, so let's see if he's, first thing first, does he want that cleared out? And that feels like that's a yes, because he definitely is. He's kind of bored with some of the things he eats too. He wants to expand. He doesn't want it to limit his experiences in life. And yet it's such a deeply embedded program. Yeah, it's like I think a lot of times when, kids will only eat certain things. I literally just had this conversation with one of my daughters the other day. It's, then that particular cycle gets perpetuated. But let's go back to the core. Let's go back to the beginning and see if we can loosen up that energetic pattern to begin with, and then see if we get a little bit more interest, at least, in trying some other things. So let's go back to the beginning here. Where is that? Yeah, it's at, so anywhere where, let's just say it like this, anywhere where he holds either within his DNA as part of his lineage patterning and or part of his really early programming, that first year of life, around, what he can control, what he can't control. Let's clear that from the DNA. Let's clear that from that first year of life. I want you to imagine that we're just putting all of that information into a big bubble or a sphere out in front of us. Yeah, he's saying put his biological mother's pattern of that in that sphere as well. So it came down the line, you might say. Some food issues were, and again, the use of food or not taking in food as, I'm going to say, almost like part of a protest or part of a, so we're going to put all of that into a sphere out in front of us. For those that haven't hung out with me before, I like spheres. I like blue stars. Those blue stars really represent where we're already whole, where this pattern is already whole. So we'll put a blue star in that field and just spin that whole field to clear. Spin out all that old patterning. Keep going, keep going. There we go. Keep it going. Okay, we'll compress that clear sphere into that blue star. We're going to return that blue star to his, I'm going to say, his exploration with food. Yeah, his relationship to food. And we'll just implode it into billions of frequencies of light there. Just basically, we're taking out an old one program and we're putting back in a new one. So let's see if that moves some things, just watching his energy to see what that's doing. Okay, so the other thing about you asking what you can do now that we've shifted that pattern out a little bit, I would, one, highly suggest that you do offer him something new, every day like you've been doing. Number two, I would eat it with him and make sure you like it. Make sure you really like it, that you're offering him something that you really enjoy, because just him picking up that energy of the enjoyment of food is going to be really helpful. And number three, anything that you set down in front of him, or as you set it down in front of him, whatever your belief system is, but bless it, add energy to it, ask it to be in support of his, I'll say, expanded dietary choices. So, and all three of those things, once we've moved a pattern, now we're just supporting and solidifying that new structure. And he's just saying that those suggestions could be really helpful. So.
All right. And then just a little second part to this question is, with his food event aversions and sensory issues and self-regulation, he is high functioning, but these behaviors that upset him and embarrass him with teachers and peers. You got it all.
Yeah. Well, and that's why he was saying it's like he doesn't want this pattern any more than anybody else wants this pattern. It's just that when something's embedded through the DNA and through the lineage, and it's also reinforced in that first year of life, then it's so deeply embedded that, he can say a million times that I want to move past it, but it's almost like the energetic framework, the foundation of it is literally in the DNA, right? So it's like if any of us grew up in a household where all we were given in the first year of life or whatever was sugar or was things that weren't so great for us. We know that even as we're maturing and moving into our adulthood, that might be a long lasting issue because it's what was set up. And especially, let's say, if our mothers or our parents were big sugar eaters, right? So that was their way of being. And then they give that to us really early on. And we might start maturing out of that and say, I don't want to do that anymore. But it takes a little bit of oomph to get over that hump because it's literally a craving that is locked into the DNA. So hopefully, with what we did energetically and we shift that pattern a little bit, then with those added suggestions, now we can start moving that pattern. Yeah. So,
Blue Star Technology, would you go into a deeper dive
yeah.
into that?
Yeah. So Blue Star Technology is it's a means of energetic support that the collective consciousness of the children gave me like decades ago. And for whatever reason, they haven't changed it. Still is something that they're working with. And so the reason that we put everything that's coming from the body or from the energetic fields into a sphere is, quite frankly, it just gives us an opportunity, or gives me an opportunity, to see what other elements might need to be talked about or might be addressed. To me, everything is energy. Everything is energy, and energy is never, we never get rid of energy. We transmute it, we transfigure it, we transform it. So we put it in that sphere just so, like, for instance, in this case, we could put that information in the sphere. And it might also be that he was angry or frustrated or overwhelmed. There might be emotion or thoughts that go with that. That's easier to see once we contain it in a sphere. The blue star really represents, again, where this pattern has already shifted. This pattern is already whole. And so we add that blue star to kind of, you might say, to neutralize that energy that's in that sphere, in that container. When we compress it and condense it back, it's clear. The blue star goes in, clears out, neutralizes out all that old information, compress that sphere back into that blue star, and then we put that new field of information into wherever it was removed from, right? Therefore, we've transfigured it, transformed it. And don't think that I'm the only one that can do this, because you can too, and I think it's just a matter of getting into a rhythm of going, okay, this is what the pattern is. Let me put that pattern in the sphere. What else do I notice? And you might not be someone who's visual like I am, but you might have a knowing of what went into the sphere, or you might hear some words or have an impression of what went into the sphere. Again, we're not trying to push our agendas. We're just creating an invitation. So, okay, this pattern of whatever it is, does that want to go into a sphere? Does that want to be shifted and changed? You'll know right away if it does, because that sphere will fill up with that information. Yeah. And adding that blue star then just goes through the process. But anything that goes into the sphere, you already know that you have permission for that information to be transfigured, transmuted, whatever that is. So again, we're not pushing our agendas. We're simply creating an invitation for things to shift and change. And very often, if something goes in that sphere, it's ready to shift and change. So does that explain it enough?
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Next question is, my pelvic floor has always had issues. I'm especially now wondering about what energetically has been affecting this region my entire life, especially with a level of continence my whole life. And of course, it is worsening as I age. Any insight and support you may have for this is deeply and greatly appreciated. Thank you for all you do and are.
Thank you. Um, this is actually something that we were just talking about in the New World Portal like a day or so ago. It's related to the same thing. So, so there's two things at play here. One, there's lineage pattern around, I'm going to say around grounding. And how do I want to say this? Hold on a second. That I got to bump it up here a notch. So again, back to DNA patterning and things like that we were talking about earlier. In that whole pelvic floor, especially in that root chakra, which very often can represent lineage, in your particular lineage, and quite frankly, in many of ours, many people within the lineage have felt a little bit apprehensive about like literally grounding themselves out, like literally being here. And that can be for a variety of reasons. That can be for I'll say very human reasons, like might not feel safe, or it might not feel like it's all that it's cracked up to be here, those kinds of things. It can also be more multidimensional than that, where, there are souls that come here and are beings that are just not as comfortable, here on planet Earth. But regardless, either way, what you're showing me is because so much of that connection to this planet, and even if you're somebody who, let's say, grounds, or, you do grounding work and that kind of thing, if that energy is moving through that lineage pattern of, I'll say, like fear of grounding, or like maybe a lack of joy in being here, or, really being very appreciative or liking the human condition, that kind of thing. It's almost like what you're showing me is we want to open up that root to your Earth star, but we want to start grounding from root to Earth star in love, in show me how wonderful it can be to be here. Show me how amazing it can be. Yeah, my family might not have gotten it, or that might not have been the energetic imprint that I got. But I wonder what would happen if I just started asking to ground here in love, to ground here in joy. Yep, to send that cord from the root down. Because what's interesting is the sacrum is definitely affected, but it's like the sacrum it's almost like a tail tucked under, like when a dog is afraid or something, they tuck their tail under. That's exactly what this looks like. So all we're doing is we're going to just acknowledge, okay, for whatever reason that was there. And one, we're going to release that whole pelvic girdle. I would play with tilting that pelvic girdle back and forth, right? Using that tailbone like an antenna, where you're getting that tailbone in the right position and you're sending that down to your Earth star. For those that might not know, the Earth star is about 8 to 10 inches below our feet. And it is our connection point to the planet. And it's not just that we're connected to the planet, it's how we're connected to the planet that makes us feel good in our bodies or not, right? If that antenna or that positioning is off for a variety of reasons, all that energy builds back up in the body, doesn't drop all the way down through. And the wonderful thing here about you is you're very interested, it seems, in, as any of us are here, if we're here, we want to be here in love, right? We want to be here and enjoy being here. We want to enjoy being in the body. And that, in some ways, that pain that you've been having has been nudging you to make that choice, right? It's kind of been inviting you to kind of go, hey, if I'm gonna, be hanging out here for lengths of time, then I want to be here and enjoy it. Yeah. So the pain's been working for you, you might say. But now that we understand what the message is, I would just start reorienting that hip girdle, playing with that tailbone tilt. And you'll know it the minute you say, I'm sending that signal to my Earth Star with love, in love, be here in joy, with joy. I think that things are going to start to shift out. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. This next question is, what does Leo need from me that I'm not already doing? I want to ensure I am supporting him, but with him being non-speaking sometimes, I am unsure.
Yeah. What a neat kid. One of the things that Leo wants you to know here is you can't imagine how much just being in the same room as him does for you and does for him, right? It's like you don't have to be interacting, you don't have to be playing. He can be looking at something completely different. He's just saying that when the two of you, are in the same space, and when you're feeling into the space that's created because two of you are in the same room, he says that he calls it like an energetic explosion. He's showing it to me like almost like where two or more are gathered, right? There's something more, there's something bigger. And he's saying, man, it gives me chills in my legs. He's saying, notice, like when you're by yourself in a room or in a space or in your car or wherever, and then notice when he's in that same space with you. If you'll notice that vibrational shift, he's saying that you are making a much deeper connection to him by noticing that where two or more are gathered, right? There, he keeps going like boom, like it's like fireworks. It's like an explosion of energy. And he loves that explosion of energy. He loves, loves, loves being in the same space as you. Yep. Doesn't mean you have to always be in the same space as him. You're a parent, got to go do your own thing too sometimes. But when you are in the same space and it is under those circumstances, you're noticing those things. He says you're kind of entering his world of vibration, of awareness. And he has a question. He's like going like this. He's like, I wonder what can change. It's like this. Like, I wonder what changes if we know that together we're better than we are apart. I wonder what that would look like, and he's just posing it as this really adorable question. I really like his energy. It's really fun. Yeah, he's a sweetheart. Yeah.
All right. My son is having health concerns with gut health and OCD, as well as head measuring too small. Do you have any ideas for support energetically? Thank you.
Well, say the first part again, Sharon.
Okay. My son is having health concerns with gut health and OCD.
OCD, right? Okay. I just want to make sure it was OCD. So the gut and the OCD they're one and the same. Address the gut and the OCD can start to regulate a little bit. One person I would put you or suggest that you look into is Zach Bush. If you haven't already, he's brilliant, Dr. Zach Bush, around gut biome and all that other information. And especially about how it impacts us kind of just neurologically. It's almost like when the gut is off, then we kind of go into these patterns of survival, you might say. And when the gut's off, also, it's almost like it doesn't give the child the opportunity to integrate more fully into their body, because that solar plexus area is kind of off limits. They come down, light body comes down in around the heart, or maybe a little bit lower than that. But if the gut biome is off, that vibration is off, and then the light body won't come all the way down in. If the light body can't come all the way down in, it doesn't feel safe. And if it doesn't feel safe, then it goes into all of these behavioral strategies in order to feel secure, which is usually what OCD is about. So I definitely would look into Zach Bush. I definitely would look into some support for balancing the gut biome. Zach Bush created something called a prebiotic that is called IONS, IONS. I have a lot of kids who suggest that they, like during private sessions and such, that parents utilize that in support of their gut. That's coming up here as well. But I would definitely do a deeper dive, if you haven't already, into Zach Bush. That gut biome balancing is going to be really supportive. It's interesting too, the thing about, the head circumference measuring smaller too. That can be for a variety of reasons, but what I'm seeing is it's almost like there's a compression of sorts within the neurological process. And if I just look at it energetically, that compression of sorts is also part of the dynamic that is causing some of the OCD behavior. It's almost like everything's too close, too compact, wants to spread out, wants to expand, wants to move, but doesn't feel like it can. And so we get into those patterns. We also want to know that we have the gut brain. I mean, we have the brain, and then we have the gut brain, and the two interface with each other always. And so everything's looped together that you were asking about. They're not separate experiences. So yeah, that IONS may be a good, just basic starting point, but I would absolutely look into Zach Bush's work, because I think that'll really support here.
All right. I use photobiomodulation a lot on my son with autism, using red and infrared light directly on his brain. I wanted to ask if he thinks this is a beneficial approach, and whether the collective ever talk about the importance of natural sunlight and circadian biology, and to counter that, the damaging effects of blue light and EMFs on them.
Yeah, so well, let me answer the first part of this. So in relationship to him in particular, yes, red light is supportive. He's saying sometimes less is more. So sometimes we might want to keep going, keep going, keep going. He's saying less is more. He's also saying that, and he might be already up at this time of the hour anyway. So just him going outside at sunrise, or if you don't hit that one, outside at sunset. He doesn't even have to be looking directly at the sun, but talk about resetting those circadian rhythms and that, sun gazing or those kinds of things. He's really bringing up that, in addition to the red light. The red light therapy can work on all kinds of amazing things. He's just saying in that case that it might not have to be, less is more, is all he's saying there. But hold on a second. I don't know if this timing of the day works for you guys. And so we've got a couple different options, sunrise and sunset. But there's something really both beautiful, sacred is the word he's using, about the two of you just stepping outside for a minute. It doesn't have to be you're not standing there for hours, just 2-3 minutes. And it's like your time to take that in. It's also really supportive for you and for your circadian rhythms. When kids aren't sleeping and kids are, going 24/7, we need to reset as well. But he's saying there's something really sacred about you guys walking out together and spending that 2 or 3 minutes, yeah, with the intent of it resetting things. It works really well, and especially right now because that solar activity is so dang potent. I mean, it's that solar activity right now is, you might say, hardwired to create evolutionary change for all of us. And for whatever reasons, he's saying, let's engage with that. Let's reset around that. And it works really well for everybody involved. So, yeah.
Raiden knows how to type and spell very well. Can he become more communicative like the spellers just by using communication device or a regular iPad, or would he have to learn a different method?
It's interesting. He just like stopped me. He's like, wait, wait, wait. And so let me feel into this. Let's see what's happening here. I think he stopped me because I think I was going to jump into something that I say often, and he's going, don't go there. It's like, that doesn't apply here. So I think he absolutely is able to, or would be able to, move from open communication, through spelling to other forms of communication or other kinds of devices. And he's, you know, again, if we meet it with, if we go into it from this place of curiosity, like here it is, what kind of support might you need from this experience versus the kind of support that is provided through spelling boards or that kind of thing. But he does seem to be able to transfer one to the other. One of the things that he is saying is, again, other forms of spelling or of, like spelling on an iPad or those kinds of opportunities better than like something like a communication device or an augmentative communication device where it's programmed to say things for him, right? He still wants the freedom to express his own thoughts and his own ideas and his own, and so whether he does that on a spelling board or whether he does that on an iPad, he says it's just an opportunity for him to, you might say, change up the motor skills required for either one. And it just kind of gives him more of a range. Is that what he's saying? So yeah, I think he definitely can do either an iPad or a spelling board for sure. Yeah. He's just, yeah, more range. I don't know why he's saying it like that, but it's like, it gives me more range. It gives me more opportunity to explore physical movement, regulation. And he just still wants to be able to say what he wants to say. He doesn't want that pre-programmed. So yeah.
I believe I meant to work with Suzy, group or individually, but I don't know which group will be best. Does Suzy have guidance on which I should sign up for, please?
Well, in the short term, you might just want to check out the information for the integration series. That's a 6-week series, but in the long term, you hopefully, if all goes well, by sometime in July, we'll have the practitioner process up and running again. And it feels like that's probably more the depth that you're looking for. So that's just what showed up. But of course, always, always, always follow your own guidance, your own intuition. But yeah, short term integration series, long term, yeah, practitioner process.
All right. As a very empathetic person, I pick up pain and suffering from dear ones easily. How can I have empathy without suffering on my own? I want to stay strong, loving without interfering, and preventing the person I love from stepping into their own power and allowing the person I love mastery their own way. It is so hard. Any advice? Thank you.
So a lot of times we have wide open sensory systems and thus empathy as a means of protection, or it's almost like a means of being able to read the room, so to speak, right? If you can read the room, then, and if you know how other people feel and where other people are, it creates a sense of safety within us, right? And so one of the things that can help for the empathy to stay open, but to not have it dysregulate you, right? Or make you feel uncomfortable in your body, is to take a little deeper dive into where that might have started in the first place. And I'm saying this, I mean, I know this one very well. It's like my earlier experience, on the one hand, has allowed me to have a degree of empathy and multidimensional sight and all kinds of things that, allow me to have this conversation with you guys today. But one of the other things that took place is, for a really long time, it used to be like if I stood in front of, or if I sat in front of a group, or if I sat in front of somebody for a private session, I was already feeling their stuff before I even got to the private session. It's like I already knew prior to the private session what somebody might be dealing with. And on the one hand, we can say, well, that can be really supportive. And on the other hand, we can say, you know what? It's like we don't have to feel something that other people are feeling to be of support to them, right? We can use our capacity, we can use our skill set. So all I'm going to suggest here is I would just ask myself, my inquiry around this was, and I'll suggest it to you too. It's like, in what way have I in the past felt safe if I knew where everybody else was? Where do I feel safer if I know that? What is that patterning? Where did that patterning kind of start? And then just go back in to that place within you. How old was the one that, had that initial experience that says, you know, I need to be looking out for what might be taking place in the world? And just ask, how old is she? And then just go back and hug her, hold her, love her, support her, tell her that you've got her, that you'll create that buffer for her instead of that energy having to create that buffer for her. So, and what you'll notice is it will also be a lot easier to be with yourself and in support of yourself around that, what you're picking up through empathy. Instead of, I think when we pick up through empathy, very often we have a tendency to want to jump in and start helping, right? Start supporting, start fixing. I'm just saying that might be some kind of survival strategy. And so we can still have the empathy, but when we feel empathy, let's go back into ourselves and say, okay, what is that bringing up? Where is that pattern? Where have I noticed that pattern before? How old is the one that's having that feeling? And the more that we support her through that, the more we can notice where other people are, but not jump into it, not be physically impacted. Because with a lot of empathy comes a lot of body processing, right? We take on other people's energy, we start feeling it in our bodies, we don't feel so good around that. And then we try to fix or support other people so that we can feel better in our bodies, right? So let's take out that part and let's just jump back into, no, I'm going to feel good in my body. I'm going to support my inner children. I'm going to support that part that wants to feel loved and nurtured and supported and held. And the more that solidifies, the more you'll know where other people are. You just won't feel it in your body. Yeah. Yeah. I hope that's helpful.
All right. Miles, 29, he says, do you have any suggestions for how to ease the anxiety and the difficulty in areas of work and social interactions?
So, Miles, what you're showing me is, it's like, anytime we've had experiences where a group or an environment has created anxiety, it's almost like that always kind of sits in the back of our minds, or in this case, it sits behind your body. It sits literally in the past. And so every time you go into a new experience, it's almost like you're referencing past experiences and then it creates a loop again. Let's clear out this back energy, these past experiences. So you're so aware and so sensitive that, we get caught in a loop. So let's clear that. I don't know how else to say it, but you're showing it to me like it's behind you. It's like in the back part of your field, in the back part of your chakras. All of that is where you're going back and referencing that. So let's clear all of that out of your field. We're going to put that in a sphere out in front of you or behind you. Yeah. And yeah, you can feel it. There's tension in your gut. There's a little bit of compression in your heart, even your throat. You get a little choked up sometimes in those kind of social situations because it's like, I know what's coming. This has happened before. I'm afraid it's going to happen again. And so it's almost like the past is being broadcast into the future, you might say, or into that scenario. So let's put all of that into a sphere. Anything from the past, anywhere where this has happened before, anywhere where there's a fear and anxiety and a stress. What you're picking up as fear, anxiety, and stress is the fear of it happening again. And the very fear of it happening again is creating it happening again. It's like a loop. So what's going in the sphere is not just the pattern, but it's the fear, the anxiety, the concern, the worry that the future will be just like the past. And let's clear that whole blue star. That will clear that whole field. Just imagine that blue star can go in there and just soothe out or radiate out or spin out all of that fear, worry, and concern. Yep. And any of the aspects of you that are fearful or have been taught to be fearful, that you can't handle fear, worry, and concern, that's actually a lie. That's not true, but that's what you learn to believe because the past was always becoming the future. So all of that goes into that sphere. We're going to blue star that, spin it to clear, spin it to clear. And for you, more so than it going clear, I want you to imagine that it's just getting comfortable in that sphere. It's like things are calming down, things are regulating. It feels a little bit more peaceful in that sphere just because all that old information is being spun out. And there we go. There we go. Let's compress and condense that clear sphere with all of that comfort, all of that a little bit more peaceful energy. We're compressing all that back into that blue star. And you're going to drop that blue star into all of your future social situations. And you can keep one of these blue stars in your back pocket so that when you're getting ready to go into a social situation, imagine throwing one of those stars into that situation before you get there. Yeah. And implode it into billions of frequencies of light. There we go. You're literally restructuring the energetics so that you can feel a little bit more peace, reduction of anxiety, little calm, so that you can actually breathe through that. Yeah. I don't know why. I see you like having sticking all those blue stars in your back pocket, literally pull them out, toss them in. It literally is an energetic reconfiguration that you're in control of. And I think you only need to know that that worked once, and then you'll be throwing them all over the place. So, yeah. Okay.
All right, two more questions.
Okay.
Okay, this last one I think you've already answered, but I am interested in the field of working with kids. I have looked into the spelling training, but it is not hitting home. What other area would you suggest I look into as a 60-year-old woman who has a background many years ago in energy work and mothering sensitives, what I would consider to be extraordinary children? Thank you.
Well, yeah, I mean, as far as the work that we do, I mean, the practitioner process might be something that you want to consider as well. But again, I just want to see something here. Yeah, it's interesting because it's not the energy work that you already do is amazing and can work really well. We want to flip one thing though, here, it's like a lot of times, again, we do energy work with other people, and we do it from the vantage point of wanting to create a particular outcome or wanting to be a particular level of support, and that's understandable. However, with energetically sensitive souls, specifically those diagnosed on the spectrum, what we want to really do is we simply want to create an invitation for us to co-create with them, or for us to support according to their soul's blueprint, instead of our desire for them to do something. And ironically, when we come at it from that vantage point, what ends up happening is they feel more comfortable being here, and they show up in ways that they don't typically show up. I cannot tell you, I've been hearing this so often. I cannot tell you how often this population says to me, that kind of like, why is it all about us? Why is it all about what we want to see for them? Instead of literally just showing up and saying, I have these multidimensional gifts, or I have this energetic capacity. How would you like to utilize what I have to offer? And then all of a sudden, man, you ask those kinds of questions and they're going, oh, I know you. You got this, this, and this. I want to show you this. I want to show you that. Can you apply that? Can you do that? And once we're hearing directly from them where they want to take us instead of where we want to take them, man, that's where life gets really exciting. That's where we're learning directly from them, and they're integrating with the support of whatever access we might have. So that's what I would say to you.
All right, last question. Generally speaking, it's about the daughter, but I didn't get the daughter's name. And it says, she's doing well, very well even. However, she struggles socially. Often when we go to family or friend gatherings, she shuts down and everyone thinks she's rude and weird. She had a flat effect and it often gets her misunderstood when she's especially overwhelmed. She'll struggle to speak out, will often make mean jokes that are again misunderstood. It appears to me that she is so desperate to say something that she'll say anything, and for some reason jokes are the easiest thing for her to say. I don't stop it because I get the weird feeling she kind of needs to do it for now. It feels impulsive, and while at the same time seems like she's using me as a way to ground when she's overwhelmed. Thanks.
Yeah. So again, when somebody who is highly energetically sensitive walks into a space with a bunch of people who have all kinds of ideas about who she is, how she should be, what she should or shouldn't be doing, that is an energy field. That energy field is broadcast to her, right? And and because their perception might be that she's weird and she's socially awkward or whatever, that's the broadcast that's going out. So the only thing she can show them back is, I'm socially awkward, right? And she's absolutely using you as a grounding field in that environment, because you know her beyond that. You know her when she's not in those kind of situations. You know what she looks like and how she interacts when she's maybe in smaller groups that are more manageable, or when the people that are in those groups are more curious about her difference or interested in finding out about it. It's interesting. I'll tell you what she said about the cracking jokes. It's like, you think about any comedian out there, they break through the tension. They break through that energetic tension by saying something that's going to bust it up. When she says something, a lot of what she says is actually, I would say, like a mirror or a reflection of something that's going on within that collective energy, right? So she's trying to bust through it by speaking directly to it. Yeah. It's like somebody in that group has those thoughts or are saying something and she just like blurts it out. It's like she almost like tries to break through. It's almost like she's trying to bring awareness to it, both for her sake and for the sake of the people that are broadcasting, those thoughts and feelings. So there's a couple different things here. One, if you have people who are fairly open that you can start this with, you can literally just ask them. It's like, "Oh, let's be curious, let's be interested, let's ask questions instead of make statements, and then she can step into that group and see how that feels. That's not always possible. You don't always have people who are open, even within our own families, to that kind of experiment, you might say. So, in that case, you can also, prior to going into an environment like that, literally bubble yourselves up. You and her be in that same space, really fill that space up with, yeah, the love and the compassion and the awareness and the safety that you really want to bring to her, and walk into a space like that and see if that changes the dynamics. But she's, all of these kids, and she as well, very energetically sensitive to the thoughts, the feelings, the broadcasts through those thoughts and feelings of other people. And so we're either going to have to invite other people to try an experiment and see how she responds in that, or actually create a safe space for her to walk into other environments. So, yeah. All right.
All right, just a couple of things. The integration series starts on July 2nd, and if anyone is interested, the New World Portal is always available. Susie can give further details and then last words.
Yeah. So, and just as far as the New World Portal is concerned, it's looking more and more like that is going to be it's going to be part of the prerequisite, not that you have had to have it before the practitioner process, but it will be kind of looped into that practitioner process. Something that we're going to ask people to do anyway. So that's something that might be a good starting point. That New World Portal really is all about, our own integration, the multidimensional aspects of ourselves, our own regulation within that. It's a good place to start, just across the board for anybody's integration. So let me look at last comments here. So again, everybody take a nice deep inhale and exhale. Just breathing into your heart space and exhaling back out, maybe even doing that a couple more times. We just, lots of different information, lots of new information today. And I think that if we leave with any thought from this particular session, it's, what are the kids inviting us to? And what are we inviting them to? And the more we look at it from that vantage point, the more we're going to get different results than looking at them through the lens of what do we think they should do, or what are we attempting to make them do. Yep. So it's like working on the next book, and we're getting there. And what I keep hearing somewhere in the title is going to be the invitation, because that's really what's happening. These kids are inviting us to, move from separation consciousness into unity consciousness. They're asking us to move from our conditioned human selves and kind of up level, you might say, so that we can kind of meet them where they are. And we're inviting them through our own integration process to feel more comfortable being in a body, feel more comfortable being here. And when both of those invitations are mutually supportive, then we do end up getting kids who are more comfortable in their bodies, and parents and professionals who are evolving exponentially, spiritually, whatever you want to call that, self-awareness, And when those two worlds go together, man, it's a nice place. So anyway, yeah, I think we'll leave it at that. And I hope that's helpful. So lots of love, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. And I'll see you next month if I don't see you before. Bye.